Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christi Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm Christi, your host, and if you're watching on YouTube, you notice that I'm dressed kind of casually with overalls. That's because we're at the Art Farm and Toad Ranch in Chilhowie, Missouri, with Richard Monson, who is Professor Emeritus of Art at Central Missouri University. Is that right?
Yes.
Central Missouri University, right? And we are radiating conceptual aliveness, which is a concept that's really pretty big. And we've been trying to define it for, the past hour or so. And, how do you talk about that? How do you explain it? What's the nature of the cosmos? What's the nature of quantum reality? And all of these type of really big questions, because this is a bigger question concerning your Great Gossamer art show coming up in 2020. So welcome, Rich. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So this Great Gossamer show, tell us about that.
Well, the show is an exhibit about spirituality, and it's spirit-driven. We started the thing rolling. We had the concept in 2016. And we allowed it to develop. And like I was talking with you about the seed that grows out around a rock, we had things that we couldn't get past, so we went out around. We allowed spirit to move us along. So it's kind of a spirit-driven happening.
Nice.
And
it is rather like a happening. The more I try to wrap my mind around this art show and roundtable and celebration, it's an happening.
Yeah, it is. It has been.
Yeah.
And it's been very, very, very fun. And the thing that I like about it is that for me, it pulled me into an area that I hadn't been dealing with in my philosophical portion for a good number of years. And the thing that it brought a kind of aliveness that had been latent and just, set aside. And I've said before that you tend to form concepts at age 9 or 10, and too often those concepts are not reviewed.
True. Yeah, and you kind of base your existence on that. You base your mindset, you base your worldview on that.
Yeah. And the problem is, at age 9 or 10, you don't have the background to really make very good observations. And so this show, which dealt with a topic that I hadn't been dealing with, dragged me out into an area where I renewed my sense of wonder. And that is what it's all about. Aliveness, mental aliveness or conceptual aliveness, we talked about that briefly. I used to tell my students, okay, I'm going to teach you a word. And plethora was the word that I used quite often. I said, now you probably don't know the word, but after I tell you what it means, you'll see it.
Yes.
And it's been there all along, but you've been dead to it. And so if you're dead to a whole lot of things, then that's not good. So by learning anything, you become more alive. And I always would end the conversation by saying that if all you need to do to live longer is to learn more.
Yes, exactly.
And so you're more alive, and if you're more alive, that equates to a longer life. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the business of learning things to expand who you are, what you are, is a little bit about what this show is about. And as I said, it pulled me into an area that I hadn't been thinking about for a good number of years. And the reason I was dragged into the area is that I got into a discussion about spirituality with my good friend John Hess. And we debated a little bit back and forth. And then that forced me to really refine what I thought about spirituality and God and so forth. And I came up then with this little book that I call The Great Gossamer.
Yeah.
And why The Great Gossamer? Well, I concluded sometime back that all great things are spirit spun.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, if you look at the great symphonies, the great architecture, the Gothic buildings, all through the ages, they're spun by somebody's belief in spirituality of one form or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so all great things are spirit spun. And so that's where the great comes from. And the spirit is gossamer thin. You know, we can't touch it. We know it's there.
Yes, it's conceptual.
We feel it on a certain level, but it is gossamer thin. So the Great Gossamer is where I got the title, where I made up the title for the book.
Right.
And so the other part of that is, we were talking about the quantum business. I had written the book just trying to figure out the Gauguin's questions. What are we? Where do we come from? Where do we go? Where are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a new question. It's been around
age
for a long
old.
time. Right. And so the part of the business was just to see what I thought or what I felt. See, we're stardust, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're
Yes.
made out of everything that's in the universe. And so if you think that and believe that and you meditate upon that, you ought to be able to understand where we came from, what we are, and maybe where we're headed. And so that's what I did to begin the book. I just simply got off to myself and focused on what was, what is this business? And so I came to certain conclusions, and those were in the book. Okay, so then your aunt.
My aunt, Mary Jane Stodeman, who was on the last episode, most recent,
Yeah.
before this episode of the Radiate Wellness podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, a couple of episodes ago. By the time this airs, yes,
Okay.
Mary Jane Stodeman.
So she is a friend, and I sent her emails that told her what I was dealing with, and we were thinking about a show that might deal with this business of spirituality. And she suggested these 3 or 4 books. And after I had finished mine, because I didn't want to be bothered by any other people's thoughts about the subject.
Yeah, you got to get your own out
That's
there and decide what you think about it.
And
sure.
so when I started reading those, the lights came on, because there was a lot of parallels between what I had felt and what the books were talking about. They were talking about quantum theory.
Yes.
And I had said in the book that we were very close to finding out what God is, because it is a force of power, positive force. And I still think that the quantum, the quanta, is getting very close to this universal energy, the universal positive energy. But the business of getting into the quantum stuff, and the people that are writing about holography and how we can maybe sense through a holographic template what's been passed and what is coming.
Interesting.
Fascinated me. And so it got me thinking entirely new tracks for my mind. And so that's where I appreciated your aunt giving me a new window to look through.
Sure.
And I found out that window some very exciting things, some things that I had already believed in, but some things that I had not thought about. And so here you are. What do? You learn something, you become more alive. You learn something, it opens up another opening for you to move through, and you simply live longer because you're more alive.
Right.
And so that's conceptual aliveness is kind of where I am right now, and my philosophic bent.
Right. I mean, others might call it mind-bending.
Mm.
And,
Yeah.
mind expanding.
Mhm.
So, just taking this concept of what you know, building on it with other things that are very similar but yet different, and then coming up with this really new concept. And so, we've all been trying to wrap our mind around this exhibition, because it's also part conference, it's part happening, it's like huge.
Yeah, it'll be primarily visual art, and it is going to have 3 opening events. And the first opening event will feature the artists, and they'll be talking about their work and how they approach it in a spiritual manner.
Sure.
And then the second is an evening session, and that will be when the good doctor from Springfield is coming up, Dr. Sheely.
Dr. Sheely, what does Dr. Sheely practice or profess?
He is a qualified neurosurgeon.
Oh, that's
And
fascinating.
he practices holographic medicine in Springfield.
Holographic medicine?
What'd I say?
Holographic.
Yeah.
Holographic, yes.
Is that what?
Like holographs?
What's the
Holistic?
holistic?
Okay,
yeah,
thank
holistic.
you. Yeah, holistic medicine.
I got stuck up there.
Okay, fantastic.
And he'll be up, and your aunt will be in a kind of a discussion group.
Yeah, like a round table.
Yeah.
To talk about this nexus of spirituality, of
Yeah.
science, of art.
Yeah, he had an interesting thing. Fact is, I got his name from one of the other books that I had checked out and bought, and it said there was this neurosurgeon in Missouri who had a medium in, I believe it was New Jersey, that he called and told the medium what the symptoms that a person had, and she then would call back and tell him what the ailment was.
Really?
And I found that pretty fascinating.
That's pretty. Well,
And
I
so then
do
I
some.
followed up on who he was.
You followed up on. I do some medical mediumship myself,
Mhm.
and it's very interesting. And then there's the medical medium over. That's what I thought you were talking about. I cannot remember the name. I'm sure we can Google it later. But yeah, that's fascinating work there. And so he works in this field, and he, takes a more holistic approach. And
Yeah.
that's interesting that he employs a medical intuitive.
Well, he did. He doesn't
do that now?
I think he did that as a kind of a test of something or
Oh,
another.
yeah, that's a great idea.
See how things work.
Well, and it's interesting because somebody would say, perhaps, well, how can this medical intuitive in New Jersey possibly know what's going on with somebody here in Missouri? But, in the quantum field, all is connected.
Yeah.
In the quantum field, that's why distance healing works. That's why
right.
distance readings work.
In non-locality.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's fantastic to me. The waves that are out there, somebody said that you could take a cubic inch of space
Mm-hmm.
that would have enough wave energy in it to blow up the world. Well, you take an atom and blast it, or whatever you do with atoms.
Right.
There's a lot of energy in
There's a
one
lot of
thing.
energy. Well, that's
Yeah.
what Tesla was working with, to draw energy out of the air.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, to power cities.
So there's just so much that is out there to speculate about and to wonder about and to be alive to, and that's why I'm so excited about the show. And I'm not the only one.
Oh, right.
People that you talk with about, do they want to put something in the show? Do they want to work something up for the show? They're generally pretty interested in doing it. And so I think it's going to be a very, very exciting show. And I expect to see some new things. Those 3 panels there, as a matter of fact, are
Okay, we're
my
sitting.
latest
For
ones.
those of you who are viewing or just listening, we're sitting here in Rich's home art gallery, and
Yeah.
so there's these 3 gorgeous panel paintings.
I got photons and
It sounds
scalar
good.
waves.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
The other thing there is that part of the idea of beginning this was to generate some ideas for new artwork. And
That sounds
so that's
great.
really how a lot of this got started. That's what I was telling you earlier, there's so many different facets to this. But one of them was that, gee, if I come up with some ideas, that might be something I can paint instead of the landscape and still life that you see so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm into that, and that again has made me a little more alive in that
Oh, absolutely.
realm.
Well, creativity does that, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
creativity it vitalizes us,
Yeah.
right? Gets us on fire.
As long as you're not doing the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how much creativity is in doing the same thing over and over and
I don't
over.
know. It runs out.
Yeah.
I had a good friend that was a professional artist.
Right.
He graduated from our university, and he had 2 or 3 galleries where he showed his work. And he was very frustrated because the galleries expected the same stuff time and again. Their clients didn't
Right.
expect anything different.
They
Didn't
wanted
want
things-
anything different.
They wanted something that would go with their couch.
That would identify
Right.
that it was his.
Oh,
So the death of art is sameness. There's no
Is.
if it isn't growing, if it's not expanding,
I would say that's the death of marriage, the death of
Yeah.
friendship, when things are too complacent and too
that's
not stimulating.
that's another little unit in my thinking.
Oh,
that
is it really?
grew out of this, and that is that everything in nature moves forward, and the only time we get sick is when we psychologically, if we dwell on something somebody said that hurt our feelings, and we dwell on that, that's reverse thinking. We're not moving
Interesting.
ahead.
Yeah,
so
sure.
that clogs up our
Our
mental
chakras,
faculties.
and our,
Absolutely.
and our aura, yeah.
And physically, same story. If you eat too much and don't utilize it, don't exercise and burn it, or get rid of it in some other way, then you get sick. It's just an automatic.
Sure.
It's automatic. If
Right.
things are not moving forward, there's illness involved.
Right, well, just like sharks, they have to keep moving or they're going to die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And what we were talking about earlier with the seed that Richard mentioned was that you had mentioned is that, a seed when it's growing, there could be a rock over it, but that it always finds a way.
Mhm.
It finds a way to go around it,
Yeah.
right? Without even any thought, without any...
Well, now, wait a minute.
Okay, yeah. Say more about that.
Well, there's a certain level of intelligence in everything, even in this seed that's growing up, bouncing its head against the rock, and somehow it decides, hey, if I go laterally, I might be able to get around whatever this is. So
Exactly.
it takes off laterally and goes up. That's a kind of intelligence, and I don't know how you divorce that from consciousness. Where is that?
Oh, interesting. That's a good question. Exactly.
so-
They do it kind of innately.
Yeah. One little thing leads to another little thing to another little thing, and it's all very exciting.
But it's all tied together, too.
Yeah, it's linked.
It's
Yeah.
all tied together. And so I think we're, just as a whole, humanity is coming to this realization that, wait a minute, science and spirituality, sense of community, all of it is so intrinsically linked.
But it all moves forward.
Yes.
And I used to think that movement is a sign of life. Well, movement, if it's forward movement, you can even draw an S shape.
Right.
And if it doubles back on itself, it's ugly. But if it moves forward, it is attractive. It's healthy. It's beautiful.
Yes, it's healthy.
And so it has to be a forward movement in order for it to be an enhancement of life. And here I am at 80-something, and when I look forward, it's pretty easy to say, well, there's not much back up there, and so let's look back. And too many people look back over, and they dwell on how that was and so forth.
They can get stuck,
and
in other words.
that's deadly. Mhm.
Yeah, it can
And
be.
so you look forward no matter.
Right. Well, when we're filming this right now, it's a retrograde. We're in Mercury retrograde. And so retrogrades are great times because the planet Mercury appears to move backwards. When we're in retrograde, any planet just appears to move backward. They don't really, but from our vantage point. So rather than going backward, though, retrogrades are a great time to go back and cross your T's, dot your I's, take care of unfinished business.
Tidy up.
Clean that. Yeah, tidy up. Tidy up. And so maybe if we're looking backward in it with a sense of taking what was needed closure and
I can see that.
reviewed to learn from, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but only a certain amount of that's worth anything. There's nothing back there that's going to help you.
No.
Not much.
No, unless you look at it with fresh eyes, perhaps.
If there's a lesson,
There's a lesson. And so this Great Gossamer art show, it's going to be in May. It starts in May 2020.
Yeah, and the three opening events are 19, 20, and 21
of May
2020, and it runs on through into June, and it starts on the 7th, the 18th.
The 18th of May. And so it's art, visual art, of course.
It's dance.
Dance. Tell me how that's going to work.
Well, I've got, see, it's not all just, one kind of spirit. It's spirituality. We have this young dancer. She's a dance major, choreographer, and she has, she's part Indian. Native American.
Native American, yeah.
And so she's going to do a dance with a group. She's choreographing a Native American / modern version of the spirituality that is in the Native American culture. So that I'm really looking forward to that. I know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And we have a poet.
A poet.
Yeah. Well, we actually have two poets. One is from Panama, Panamanian American.
Oh, interesting.
And he's got a different perspective on things.
Oh, sure.
And I've got a small booklet of his work, and it really is quite good. And then we have a local poet that's going to read poetry. And there'll be music. I'm not too sure. We haven't pinned the music down, but so there'll be all of the arts involved.
Visual dance, arts, music,
sculpture, and
there's sculpture too,
and painting. And
I have to say, sculpture is my favorite medium, so that'll be fun. Yeah.
There you go. And so all of it will be related to spirituality in one way or another.
Hi, this is Christi. I just want to say that we here at Radiate Wellness hope you are enjoying this podcast. It's free to you, and we hope that you find it informative and inspirational, heck, even fun. We have just 3 small asks of you to help us radiate growth. First, please hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. That way, you'll receive a notification every time that we have a new podcast episode out. Next, please give us a thumbs up, a like, or a 5-star review. If you're feeling inspired, a positive review wouldn't hurt. These 2 small things will help others find us when they're searching for great podcasts. Finally, please tell your friends about the Radiate Wellness podcast. Better yet, show them how to find us and how to subscribe. If everyone did that, we would double our audience. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it.
Well, the arts have always been part of spirituality.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, ever since the beginning, when people couldn't read, and so there would be the paintings of the saints and the story of Jesus and all like that for people who didn't understand letters. And so it's always been part of that. And movement, dance, I mean, you've got the Sufis, you've got the dervishes, you've got, the Native Americans and the African groups, they use movement and dance to express their spiritual concepts.
Absolutely. And it was all spiritual.
Yes, it was. Right, yeah. All of the arts had a spiritual focus.
Well, and you talk about your muse. Where does that come from?
Right.
We really we're steeped in spirituality.
Right.
A lot of people won't walk under a ladder. That's a spiritual.
It's kind of a spiritual, it's a spiritual superstition.
Business of synchronicity.
Oh yeah.
Carl Jung's concept of somebody on the other line. I was just going to call you. You hear a call and thousands of miles apart, and hadn't talked with the other person for
No.
6 months, and both of them started to call each other. One of them started to call the other.
The other was
I just
thinking.
was thinking about you. That happens. And
Oh, it does.
driving down the road, you see a sign that says potholes or whatever.
Right, you see a sign that was
And
just
just
an
after
answer to-
somebody was talking about potholes.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Yes, that notion of everything being connected, right.
The other thing that fascinates me lately that relates to the quantum business is this fellow, and I can't recall his name, who for 30 years interviewed children of 3 and 4 years of age who recall and started talking about, their mothers didn't have any idea what was going on, they started talking about
Past
previous-
lives.
previous lives.
That is fascinating to me.
And me too. That probably is the most fascinating thing that I've run across.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is the biggest proof,
Yeah.
because these children have no preconceived notions.
Wouldn't have any idea where this was coming from.
No. Oh, my
And-
daughter has said some amazing things
Is that right?
about her previous lifetimes, and it's yeah, they would have no reason to, or a reason to make anything up
No,
like that.
no, comes completely out of the blue, so to speak.
Right, and what's nice is that many times, and I think I know the book that you're talking about, this research, I think I know who that is, but you can go and verify.
Mm. Yeah, they took this one kid back to where he claimed he
Was
lived,
from, right.
and he was able to identify neighbors and all sorts of
And
things.
even who killed him, I believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is. It's
So you can
Pretty
verify
amazing
these
stuff.
things.
yeah.
So if anybody doubted at all, then it seems pretty
there's
proof positive.
always going to be people that doubt it.
And that's interesting about the topic of spirituality. It is vast and it touches all areas of our life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really does, and like you said, we're in it. We're like swimming in this soup.
Yeah, and we don't, a lot of it, we don't even realize that it is spiritual stuff,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
like superstitions. Even though that most people call them silly, there's still something that triggers it. There's something that,
Mm-hmm.
Karma is a great example. The lay way of saying karma is, well, what goes around comes around. And
Oh, it's more than that, though.
I know, but that's what
yeah,
the
that's
lay
what people think. Yeah.
and yet that still talks to a spiritual consideration,
It does.
meaning, well, if I do this, it'll come back and hit me in the rear. What? I mean, who's going to send it back? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
where does that come from? That's a belief in something spiritual, and so we're steeped in it, and we don't admit it and don't realize it.
Right. That place is really my sweet spot, is that place of the spirituality that we actually live, and that it is backed up by science and backed up by research, and the place where people are kind of interested and might know a bit about it but don't really understand it, and there's this chance for this great awakening.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned these two, I don't know whether I mentioned it right now, but these two teachers of physics out in California. And they were pretty much excluding the potential of spiritual business, except at the end they said, and I can't think of the Nobel Prize winning physicist who, when he won the Nobel Prize, saw fit to put yin and yang on his
Medal. His medal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
so they left a little door open, even these straight-laced
I love
scientist types.
And this stuff is, I don't know if you remember the book and the movie The Secret several years ago. Oh, you've got to see this movie. It's great. The book too, of course. But just how this type of thing it's not a secret.
Mm.
It's been wide out there for all to see.
Mm.
People have been writing about it since the ancient Greek times.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and this power of thought and this power of our minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the old cliche, mind over matter. Well, that's an essence of it.
It is.
And
but what if our minds were the part of us that's God?
There you are. Well, it's in here and it's out there.
Yes.
And you use what's in here, that part of you that's God, you can access it and you can be brought alive by it, or you can access the God that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
It might be handier to access the God that's in here, because the God that's out there might be moving around faster than the God that's in here. Anyway, that gets pretty convoluted.
Right. Well, and I think what's going on in our society right now is the God that's out there, for many, is more prevalent than the God that's in here. And if we pay attention to the God that's in here, then we have compassion for others. Mm-hmm. We understand that we're all connected. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't harm you because that would harm me, and you wouldn't harm me because that would harm you.
Sure.
But then when we pay attention to the God out there and make it supreme, then that everything is outside of me.
Mm.
Right? And so then it becomes much easier to disregard what's outside of you. I don't know, it's just a random thought that I had.
Yeah, you could debate too there about whether there's a need for an external authority.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the answer to that question.
No, that's a huge question.
It is.
Well, all of these are huge questions, Rich.
Yeah, and that's why they're fun.
Because you'll never get to the bottom of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but the pursuit of it is the fun part.
It really is.
And in the little book, I say there's a dialogue that goes on in the little book after my poetic part. I call it poetic.
Oh yes.
And it is how does Monson know he's right? And the answer is, you don't have to know you're right, or you don't have to be right. You just have to believe that that's the way it is, so you can go on to the next thing.
Right.
And to a certain extent, you do have to form a concept of something in order to release yourself from it to move forward.
Right.
And my point earlier was that sometimes we form our concept about God, about everything, when we're 9 years old and don't have a lot of background to work with. Mm-hmm. That's why it's good to review the concepts and then come up with more mature ones.
Well, and that reminds me of a question that I had for you, Rich, and that is, what was your spirituality growing up? I mean, what were you raised in a church? Were you, did you have to do religious classes or anything like growing up? Where did you approach spirituality in your family?
My parents were really good to us in that they did not, they didn't hound us about stuff.
Good.
We just were allowed to grow up. My mom took us to church, and I stayed with it a little bit, but not on a regular basis. And
what was that, Methodist, Baptist?
Yeah, Methodist.
Yeah. Okay,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
And it's a fairly liberal belief.
Yeah.
They don't hound you too much, and so a little easier to take for me. And but
when did you start?
I've always had a more general, more abstract idea about religion.
Right. And when did you really start seeking and questioning?
Well, all along, I suppose.
Sure.
Yeah. But I haven't been writing anything down to speak of on it until this. And then I often say I don't know what I think until I write it down. I think it's true. You really, when you write something down, that's what you believe.
Yeah.
And otherwise, just talking. You know, you can talk one day one way and another day another way, and it doesn't matter to anybody. And when you write it down, you damn well better feel like that's what you believe.
Well, I used to teach college English, and I'd tell my students, how do you know what you think until you see what you say?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would take it one step further and say, until you write out what you say.
Right.
But there again, you taught English, okay. Vocabulary is extremely important.
Words have power.
Absolutely, because that's where you think with your words. And if you don't have a good vocabulary, your thinking is coarse and brittle. And so English, our language, is extremely important, and that ties back into the more you know, the more alive you are. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
because your words are the way you express who you are and what you think.
sure.
Right?
And if there's no subtlety in your terminology, it's like certain cultures only had names for 5 colors.
Oh, sure, right.
And so you don't know whether the other colors just fell through the cracks, which can happen ideologically, or whether they just never used them or didn't even recognize them.
Right, or color wasn't important somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, interesting. And so, you could have gone so many different ways with these realizations you had. You wrote this Gossamer book, and you had the poetry and the words to put to the thoughts you were having. Could have gone so many different ways. Why an art exhibition?
It was just, we wanted to see what other people thought along the same lines, and we found out that there were a lot of people that were interested in it, and so we went ahead and scheduled it, and this was way back in 2016 into 17, and thought we'd just see what turns up, and some very interesting things are coming in.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And again, though, from myself, I'm enjoying scooting my way out there beyond where I was, and enjoying trying things that I'm fascinated by photons. Photons are a light source, as I understand it, in my limited understanding, and so also carriers of information of one sort or another. And so I'm working with the idea. My next painting is going to deal with photons and how they might.
Interesting.
And so at any rate,
And just painting.
it just gives me
light.
something new to paint.
Exactly. It's the whole concept of move forward or you die.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
We've got to keep creating, and we've got to have to keep showing up.
Yeah.
It's
That's right.
fascinating.
Yeah.
And so Great Gossamer is next May 2020.
Mhm.
It's visual art.
Yeah, University of Central Missouri,
Good. University of Central Missouri.
Warrensburg, Missouri,
Good.
and we still are accepting entries to it.
Oh, wonderful.
And that'll be until the 5th of September. And
So
then-
if someone would like to enter work in this show, or anything that they do, maybe poetry,
yeah,
music, how do they enter?
they would get. We have a they would notify me by email.
Okay.
And
And you can go ahead and say your
okay.
email address if you like.
MAFTR01
Yes. Yes.
Yahoo.
MAFTR01 at Yahoo.
Yeah.
And is there a website?
No, we don't have website.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. Okay.
Um,
And so you're taking all kinds of applications
That's right.
for
If somebody-
art exhibit.
We may want to, if somebody submits something and says that they have something that's spiritual, chances are we'll put it in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And there again, we're not jurying the stuff, because if it's spiritual and somebody believes in it, then
Absolutely.
we'll have some merit. We may want to select from a number 3 or 4
Right, because you may
that
have
kind
so
of
many submissions.
Yeah. Size might be a factor.
Sure,
But,
absolutely.
yeah, we're still accepting.
Good. For dance, poetry, visual art, music.
Yeah.
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 I know that you're
Poetry.
considering several artists, musicians from the Kansas City area.
Yeah.
Are there any other areas in the country that you're already looking at?
We're not targeting areas.
No.
We're getting the information out various ways, and there's a sculptor from, I think it's Portland, and she may put something in the show.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so it's really kind of a reach out and touch method of putting a show together, and it's working pretty well.
Good. Well, we have viewers and listeners all over the world, and so if anybody's got any ideas for art, music, poetry, dance, anything like that would be a good fit for this nexus between art and spirituality,
Right.
then please let us know.
Sure.
Send a submission to Rich.
Yeah. Just let us know what you have, and if you've got a good picture or two of it, send it along. And welcome aboard.
Yeah, no, this is going to be an exciting thing.
I think it will be.
And so we're just about out of time. Is there anything else you would like to express about this concept or this idea? Maybe something we haven't talked about or something that bears repeating?
Well, not. There are some things that probably I could go back to my paper and check it over, or just glance through here. I have.
Yeah, you've got abstracts and abstracts. Yes. Yeah, all kinds of abstracts.
In divisive and angry times, a quiet introspective review of humankind's spiritual position in the cosmos would be in order.
Yes.
The Great Gossamer 2020 is a vehicle for such a review. So we are not allowing it to get political in any way.
Thank you.
No advocacy of any particular religion or type of sales.
Right.
If something is sold, that's fine. We're not against it, but we're just not hustling.
Right.
We're letting spirits move us, and we are avoiding the controversy that seems to be in the air. And we don't need that. I don't think it's spiritual.
I agree
It's
with
mean
you.
and hateful, and it's not moving forward. It's just
Keeping us stuck.
dead on the vine.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
So
there,
that's
Rich.
one thing. When we first started out, Hess and I both agreed that no politics, none of that crud that's going on. And aside from that, pretty much anything that a person believes in and believes was motivated in a spiritual way by their muse. That's if you approach your art and you feel driven by some subject matter, that's spiritual, and so it's pretty wide open.
It's pretty wide open.
And welcome.
Right.
Till 5th of September.
Okay, you're taking submissions.
We have to
through
cut off. Yeah.
Well, I can see that.
And start developing the show.
Yeah, 5th of September 2019, that is,
Yeah,
right.
this September.
Yeah, this September, yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Rich. This has been really fun, and
Well, I've enjoyed.
I'm enjoying a moment to actually try to wrap my head around this whole show, but this is really enlightening.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.